Welcome to Right versus Left News, your daily briefing on the stories that matter, told from both sides of the aisle. I'm your AI host, Chris, and each day I bring you the most important political and cultural news, with perspectives from conservative and progressive voices. No spin, no agenda, just the facts and the opinions that shape our national conversation. Let's dive in. Today we're tracking 5 big stories shaping politics and policy. First, Washington's partial shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security is still unresolved, even as President Trump's nominee to run DHS moves a step closer to a floor vote. Second, the US-Israel war with Iran has spilled deeper into Gulf energy infrastructure, sending oil and gas prices higher and pushing Europe into emergency talks. Third, Trump has postponed his late March trip to Beijing to keep focus on the Iran fight. Fourth, the Senate is deep into a talking marathon on the Save America Act. Republicans want stricter voter ID and proof of citizenship before November, while Democrats call it voter suppression. And fifth, Fortnite is back on Google Play, the first big consumer change from the Google Epic settlement, rekindling debate over big tech power and antitrust. Before we jump into today's stories, a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT, but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values. Whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely. No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat.
Thanks to our sponsors for supporting Right vs. Left News. Now, let's get to the headlines. Here's what happened. Lawmakers remain far apart on reopening DHS, weeks into a funding lapse that's left TSA, the Coast Guard, and other personnel working without pay. There's still no deal. The Senate Homeland Security panel is poised to advance Senator Markwayne Mullin's nomination to lead the department, setting up a floor fight even as funding remains stalled. A White House negotiating offer was dismissed by critics as symbolic. The impasse is straining airports and security operations, while both parties trade blame. On the right, conservatives argue Democrats are leveraging DHS funding to constrain immigration enforcement at a dangerous moment, and should end what the White House brands the Democrats' DHS shutdown. House Homeland Security Republicans say the lapse jeopardizes frontline missions, including World Cup security planning, and insist the Senate take up the House-passed bill. On the left, progressives fault Trump for tying unrelated demands to core funding and for shuffling DHS leadership mid-crisis. Airport workers are missing pay, and there's no viable path without decoupling immigration fights from basic operations. The war's energy shock is mounting. After an Israeli strike on Iran's South Pars gas complex on March 18th, Iran hit multiple Gulf energy facilities, including Qatar's Ras Laffan LNG hub and refineries in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, pushing oil and gas prices higher. Analysts now expect the conflict to stretch into May. European leaders met to confront the cost spike. On the right, many conservatives see the escalation as proof that maximum pressure on Tehran and strong deterrence with Israel remain necessary. They argue energy markets are reacting to Iranian aggression, not US policy, and that long-term security requires degrading Iran's capabilities and hardening global supply lines. Reports of US-Israeli coordination on the South Pars strike are cited to argue that resolve deters worse chaos. On the left, progressives warn the current strategy risks a wider regional war and global inflation, pointing to European leaders' concern over prices and analysis linking the energy shock to Allied actions. They stress the risk of prolonged market turmoil and populist blowback if household energy costs spike. Trump has postponed his late March visit to Beijing, a trip billed as a chance to stabilize trade ties. The White House says it will reset the summit timing to keep focus on the Iran conflict. Treasury's China track had been making progress in Paris earlier this month. Now the delay injects fresh uncertainty into tariff and tech talks. On the right, supporters call it prudent to prioritize national security over ceremony, contain Iran first, then finish trade diplomacy. They also say the delay keeps pressure on Beijing while lower-level talks continue. On the left, critics worry the postponement heightens global economic uncertainty and could empower hardliners on both sides to revive tariff escalations or slow rare earth and tech supply arrangements that markets expected by early spring. Momentum had been building. Delay risks losing it. We'll be right back with more of today's news after this brief message.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT, but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values. Whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely. No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat.
Thanks again to our sponsors. Now back to the news. The Senate's Save America Act debate is in full swing. Republicans opened days of floor speeches on a nationwide voter ID and proof of citizenship bill that passed the House in February. The measure lacks the 60 votes to clear a filibuster, but Republicans want Democrats on record. Majority Leader John Thune acknowledges the votes aren't there to change Senate rules as Trump demands. On the right, conservatives argue overwhelming public support for voter ID justifies federal standards. They view the debate as exposing Democrats' resistance to basic election integrity, and some are calling for tougher tactics despite the filibuster. On the left, progressives contend the bill would purge legitimate voters, erect new barriers for married women and naturalized citizens, and outsource verification to federal databases in ways ripe for error. They frame the push as political theater likely to fail. The talkathon is more about messaging than passage. Fortnite returns to Google Play today, a tangible outcome of the Google Epic settlement lodged with a federal court this month. The relaunch comes with a deal that cuts many play commissions to about 20% and opens distribution. For antitrust watchers, it's a live test of whether remedies short of a breakup can change market behavior. On the right, free market conservatives tend to prefer light-touch remedies over structural breakups. They see Google's concessions and a reopened app pipeline as evidence markets can adapt without maximal state intervention. On the left, progressives argue these shifts underscore why aggressive antitrust enforcement matters, pointing to the Justice Department's separate win in the search monopoly case as leverage that helped pry open app distribution and fees. They'll watch to see whether the settlement delivers durable competition, or if Congress should go further. Quick recap. DHS funding remains stuck, even as Trump's DHS pick advances. The Iran war is battering Gulf energy and global prices. Trump has postponed his China trip. The Senate's SAVE Act debate is roaring but faces a filibuster wall. And Fortnite's return to Google Play spotlights how antitrust remedies can ripple into daily tech. We'll keep tracking these through the weekend, and we'll be back tomorrow with what moves next. That's it for today's episode of Right versus Left News. Remember, understanding both sides isn't about picking a team, it's about being informed. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join us tomorrow for another balanced look at the day's biggest stories. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.